Well, I'm really excited to kick this off with you all today. We are talking about navigating workload. And when you registered, I had asked you this question. What is your biggest challenge with navigating your workload? Here are the top themes that you shared with me. I heard this over and over again. Time management and competing priorities, overwhelm with the volume of work that's coming my way, distractions, focus, organization, getting organized and tracking all of the tasks that I have, and getting unrealistic expectations and constant interruptions. My goal today is to provide you with a menu of options to help you mitigate these challenges. The intent isn't to try to do all of this at once. Focus in on what you think will have the biggest impact on minimizing your specific challenge. For those that don't know me, my name's Jen Rekla. I've worked in the leadership space for about 15 years in healthcare, nonprofit, public sector. And for the past 12 years, I've worked in the learning and organizational development field. I'm currently a leadership coach, trainer, and consultant with my own practice. That's the more formal side of me. This is the more informal side of me. My top two values are fun and adventure. I bring that to everything that I do. I try not to take myself too seriously. Absolutely love giraffes. You might even see in my background, I've got a giraffe standing up on my bookshelf. Family is really important to me. Absolutely love the outdoors, love hiking and paddleboarding and all the things. And I very much believe in a strengths-based philosophy to work and life. And I am really excited to chat with you about navigating your workload today. I am all about practical action. Everything I share with you today is something that you can start working on as soon as the session is over. About 18 years ago, I was working here at this downtown hospital in Baltimore. And I was working in operations management as an individual contributor. And most of my days, I felt like this. I don't know about you, but does anyone else? Can you relate to the emotion that's in this image? Anyone raise your hand? Go ahead and post in the chat if you can 100% relate to this emotion. That was me too. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed most days. I didn't have a great relationship with time. It was not my friend. I had all of these windows open up on my screen. I was constantly checking my email, stopping what I was doing and checking email. I had lots of windows open. I had post-it notes. I was tracking my to-dos on paper, in notebooks. I think I had a to-do list in my computer. There was a whiteboard that I had all of my to-do items. There was calendar. I had my calendar as well. So I just was really, really unorganized. And then I stumbled upon this book. This isn't a brand new book. It was written quite a while ago. And it isn't an entire book dedicated to one of the habits that's part of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And when I read this book, what it did is it completely changed my relationship with time. I started shifting my focus from everything is urgent, I need to stop what I'm doing, to what's really important, what matters most. And so for the last 15 years, since I read that book, I've really strengthened my ability to navigate my workload to have better impact on teams that I've led, individuals I've coached or taught, and I've helped others do the same. Some of what I'll share with you today is from this book, and I'll share some additional resources I've used in a follow-up email after this session today as well. Now, why are we talking about navigating workload? Because this is the number one complaint I hear from leaders, and let's face it, just about everyone. If we can't get this, if we can't get better at navigating our time, navigating our workload, it's going to be really hard for us to get the best out of ourselves and the teams that we lead. We need to create more bandwidth, more than just space on our calendar, but the mental capacity to continue to grow ourselves and grow the people that we work with and grow the people that we lead. So there's a question that I want to ask you, and you can go ahead and post your answer in the chat. When you think about this challenge of not having enough time, how much time would you like to get back each week? Is it 1 hour? Is it 2 hours? Is it 30 minutes? Just if I could get 30 minutes a week, how much time would you want to reclaim if you could? Go ahead and post that in the chat. 1 hour a day. Okay, so maybe 7 hours a week if we're looking at the full week. If we're just looking at the work week, 5 hours. Okay, 1 hour a day. I love it. Any others? Parker says 1 hour a day too. 3 hours a week, 3 to 5 hours per week. Yeah, love that. I want to reclaim my weekends. Oh, Bethany, I want to give you back your weekends. 5 hours a week, says Tim, 2 to 3 hours. 30 to 35 hours a week would be great. I love that, Sam. Let's go big, right? Just an hour at least, 2 hours a day. Love that. So have that in your mind. How much time do I want to reclaim each week? And here is the really important follow-up question. What am I going to do with that time? Am I going to spend more time on my business if I own a business, on growing my team, growing myself, on this really important project or initiative or goal I'm working towards? Or is it to get more time on the weekend, more time with family? Let's say for me, it's really 4 hours. I would love an additional 4 hours a week. Now, I need a compelling reason to want this time back. And for me, I'd love to spend 1 hour walking outdoors, an extra hour walking outside. I love the outdoors. I'd like to spend 2 hours extra a week with my family, spending time with my spouse and my kids. And I love reading. So I would love an extra hour a week to spend on reading. For me, that's my why. So think about your why. Think about your compelling reason to get those 30 hours back or that 1 hour a day. That is your motivation for sustaining the practices that we talk about today. And then also think about the challenge, right? You all shared a challenge with navigating your workload. Think about that challenge. What's getting in the way from you getting the 2 hours a day, the 1 hour a day, the 5 hours a week? So let's start talking about what we can do about that, how to mitigate that challenge so we can reclaim our time and do the things that really matter to us. Before I get tactical, I am going to get tactical with some specific actions. But before we do that, it's important to build awareness about our relationship and perception of time. So think about this question for yourself. What is my relationship with time? Remember, I mentioned it wasn't really a friend to me a while ago. Do you feel the same? Is it more of a foe than a friend? Do you prioritize what's on your schedule, or do you schedule your priorities? Do you feel like there's not enough time, or is time is endless? It controls me, or I control it. Is it working against you, or are you working with it? So think about your own relationship with time and how it shows up for you. This is really important to understand where your current state is. And the other thing that we need to talk about when we're talking about our relationship with time is how we view busy. Do we wear busy as a badge of honor, or have we eliminated or minimized it from our language? Busy makes us feel good, wanted, important. I am absolutely 100% guilty of answering the question, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. I'm just so busy. I'm just busy. But busy does not equal impactful, valuable, getting the results that we want. So rethinking our connection to busy is an important component of this as well. Time is not outside of us. We have more control of time, our work, our schedules than we think. And busy doesn't have to be a part of our vocabulary anymore. If we can change our relationship with time, we can change how we navigate our work. And in addition to answering those questions about your relationship with time, we also need to recognize the mindsets that typically drive our relationship with time. And the reason I'm starting here before we get tactical is it's so foundational. Our mindsets, they're the lens with which we view the world, and they are heavily influenced by our experiences. These experiences, they shape our thoughts, they shape our beliefs, they shape our attitudes, and they drive our behavior, our actions, and our results. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I don't know if you're familiar with that quote by Wayne Dyer. What it suggests is that we filter the world around us subconsciously, and becoming aware of that filter helps us to challenge it. So that's what this is about, is challenging our current relationship with time, challenging these mindsets that I'm going to introduce to you. So the first mindset combo that I want to talk about is scarcity versus abundance. So a scarcity mindset, we look at time as a limited commodity. We often feel pressured by deadlines. We fear wasted moments. This perspective, it can lead to stress. It can lead to impatience and this constant rush. In contrast, abundance mindset, it sees time as ample. There's enough. This allows individuals to approach it with more patience and a focus on the long-term goals, the long game. We become less concerned with those immediate deadlines and we prioritize the bigger picture. It helps us in slowing down, not feeling as rushed. It really promotes more of a forward-thinking attitude. It helps us reduce stress, and it enables us to make more thoughtful decisions about how we allocate our time and our energy. Now, we're all on a continuum of scarcity and abundance. And when we're really stressed, it's easy for us to shift more into a scarcity space. We want to avoid that as much as we can, shift more to an abundance mindset. And this is where strengthening resilience comes into play, something I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this session. And honestly, just being aware that this mindset exists is the start of us challenging it and shifting the way that we see things. So that's one mindset pairing that I wanted to introduce to you. The other one is urgency and importance. So an urgency mindset, this focuses on what do I need to, I need to stop what I'm doing right now and focus on this. This is imminent deadlines. It's pressure to get things done right this second. And it can lead to us being very reactive. Also leads to stress and this constant sense of rushing, very similar to that scarcity mindset that I talked about. When we focus on importance first, this prioritizes tasks based on their significance. What's that thing that's going to make tomorrow better, and the next day, and the next day? What's the long-term impact, regardless of the immediate deadline? So it's taking a step back and looking at the big picture. It also emphasizes strategic planning, relationship building, personal growth, achieving our goals. Now, we want to balance both because urgency is still something we want to focus on. There are certain things that I need to stop what I'm doing right now. We just don't want it to be the leading factor. We want to lead with importance first. That's the key with this mindset because we don't want urgent to overshadow our long-term goals, our long-term objectives, that big picture. So questions to ask yourself. This is a self-assessment for you as you dive into this work. What's my relationship with time? Do I lead from abundance or do I lead from scarcity? Do I focus more on importance or do I focus more on urgency first? Having a positive relationship with time, leaning towards an abundance mindset, and focusing on what matters most first will increase the effectiveness of the strategies I'm going to talk about next. So now let's get into some specific actions you can take. First, we need to get organized, and we do that by capturing and clarifying our work. Then we ensure we have control over our environment as much as we can by managing our distractions. And the kicker, how do we sustain success? We can get really good at number one and number two, and we're thriving, right? We're feeling great, but then the stress comes and the overwhelm comes, and I no longer can think clearly. So strengthening our resiliency is essential for us to be successful for the long term. So those are the three things that we're going to cover today, getting more into the tactics. Starting with getting organized. How do you currently capture all your to-do items? In the beginning, I'd mentioned I had a task list on my computer. I had notebooks, papers, sticky notes. I had a whiteboard that I kept everything. What about you? Do you use similar tools? Do you have a system that you use? Go ahead and post that in the chat. What are all the ways that you currently capture all your to-dos? Barbara says all of the above. In my head, Georgia, I see you. Okay, a daily planner, to-do list Trello, OneNote. What don't I use? Brittany says Gmail inbox. Trisha's seconding Barbara, paper lists, Outlook, spreadsheets, planners, several systems, and then priorities happen and change my systems. Yep. Make lists, my calendar, flagging emails. Absolutely. So lots of different things that people use. I'm going to share with you the system I use to capture to-dos. And this is to share an example. Doesn't mean you need to follow this path. It's really just to inspire you to create a system that is accessible, that is easy to use, and reliable. And what this is what's so important is use what you need, but as few as possible. So for me, I whittled it down to three items that I use to capture all of my to-dos. The first is email. When I get ideas or I remember that I need to follow up with somebody or I want to chat with someone about this or did I make sure that I emailed this person? Usually those thoughts come to me when I'm not at my desk, when I can't put it in my task list. So I'll email myself be sitting at my kid's baseball game and I'll email myself ideas or things that I need to do, or I'm cooking, I'll take a pause and I'll email myself real quick. So that's how I capture initial thoughts that I have when I'm not at my work desk or it's happening on a weekend and I get a thought and I don't want to forget it. So email is one of the ways that I capture. And then what I do is I take that email and I add it to my task list. Now, I've used Outlook in the past. Right now, I'm using Gmail. So I take that Gmail reminder to myself and I add it to the Google task that they have within the email. I add that to my list and then I schedule it. Schedule time for me to complete that task. That's it. That is my system. It's those three items. What works for me is it's all in one place. That's been really important. Before I had things in too many different places. This is all in one system. It's all in one place. It is all connected for me. So that's what works for me. So think about your capture system. How many places are you capturing your to-do items? Is it too many? Can you whittle it down to two or three items? Is it working for you? For some of you, you might say, my capture system's good. I actually am really happy with my capture system. Great. But for others, this is a great opportunity to funnel or filter out what's not really working for you and really hone in on accessible, easy to use, reliable. Hey, if it can all be in one system and all connected, I think I found that to be really helpful as well. And yet, what the last step of scheduling the time to do your tasks, that has been huge for me. That is the only way it gets done is if it's scheduled for me. So that's your capturing system. You want to have some kind of system that works for you to capture. And then you need to clarify what's most important. So how do you all do that now? When you're looking at your to-do list, how do you prioritize? Is it based on what your leader said? Is it based on customers? Do you have specific deadlines you have to follow? Are there questions that you ask yourself? Dan says deadline. What are other ways that you clarify? Questions you ask yourself, or maybe you don't have a specific system. It's just you look at your day and say, oh, this seems most important, which is okay too. Yeah. Tim says, what happens first? That's what I focus on. Project goals, due dates, review upcoming meetings, risk. You look at risk, what's due to court. Absolutely. So I'm going to share one way that has helped me clarify, and this is from that First Things First book. So some of you might be very familiar with this. This is the Eisenhower matrix. You might have heard it called the time management matrix. This is something that has been very helpful for me personally to clarify what's most important and urgent, and it's also been really helpful with teams that I've led and working with other teams as well, using this tool as a guide. So, yep, Seven Habits book. This is in the Seven Habits book. This is in First Things First. You've probably seen other individuals that really focus on productivity talk about this tool as well. So, walking you through this is based on two foundations: urgency and importance. And the way that we define urgent here is this needs my immediate attention. You have to stop what I'm doing right now. It's some kind of maybe crisis that's happening, and everything else needs to be put on hold for this. That's what's urgent here. And then how we define importance is this aligns with my goals, my values, my purpose. That's what's most important. And when you're reviewing those items you've captured, your to-do list, you want to ask yourself, is this important? Does it align with my values, my goals, my purpose, key performance indicators? What's important to my leader? What's important to my customers? That's the first question to ask yourself. And then you might say, yes, it is important. Okay. Well, then the second question is it urgent? If it's urgent, it needs my immediate attention. I would define this as a crisis, then I need to stop what I'm doing and I need to focus on that first. Individuals, organizations that are really good at navigating their workload, they know that they're going to have to spend time in here, but it's only about 20 to 25% of your time is in this space. Then you might say to yourself, you know what? It's not urgent. It is important. It's not urgent. It's something I can plan for. It's something that I can schedule time to do in the future. I'm going to block my calendar. So it's still important, but it's just not something that needs my immediate attention right now. Strategic planning, relationship building, my personal growth, all would fall in this bucket. And individuals that are really good at navigating their workload, getting to the results they want, and spending about 65 to 75% of their time in this space. This is where you can get proactive. And it's hard. Urgent does not equal important. That's something I remind people about all the time. Just because we don't put it in the urgent and important category doesn't mean it's still not important. So, another question then to ask yourself is, okay, I said, is it important? And you say to yourself, no, it's not important, actually. But there seems to be this sense of urgency around it. Some meetings pop up this way, right? It's 9 o'clock in the morning and a 10 o'clock meeting just popped up on your calendar. But when you look at the subject, you look at what it's about, this really isn't urgent. We don't need to stop what we're doing right now to do this. That might fall in this bottom category where it's seemingly urgent, it's not really important. Other people's urgency all of a sudden becomes your urgency, even though it's not really aligned with your deadlines, with what you're focused on, with your goals. And then the final space that we look at when we say, okay, it's not important and it's not really urgent, can I eliminate this? Can I delegate this to someone else who it would be important for their role? Or this could be a really great learning opportunity for this individual. So those are questions you can ask yourself to figure out which category do my to-do items fall in. If they're in that urgent, important space, I got to do it now. If they're important but not urgent, let me schedule it on my calendar. And if it's these bottom two spaces, how can I minimize, eliminate, delegate these activities to someone else? So I'm not spending too much time here because, if we're spending 20 to 25% in that first quadrant and 65 to 75% in that second quadrant, there isn't much time to do anything else. You really want to minimize the time that you spend in those bottom spaces. And then some additional questions that are really helpful in leadership positions. Sometimes when we move from an individual contributor to a leadership position, we hold on to those old tasks that we used to do that really aren't serving our role anymore. They don't make sense for us to do. So some questions, ask yourself, what important items should be delegated? And then what items are you prioritizing that really are not important for your role anymore? They don't make sense for what you do, but they do make sense for someone that works on your team. That would absolutely be an important task for them. So just another lens to look at as you're clarifying your work. Does this make sense for me to continue to do in my role? Which meetings can a representative go in my place? What could be an opportunity for someone else to learn or grow? And I see some chats. Thank you all for sharing in the chat your ideas and questions. If you have questions along the way, I will get to them. So don't worry, I will come back to them. And this is just a quick tip that I have found really helpful in clarifying my work as well. Oftentimes, what do? We get to our desk in the morning, we open emails right away, and we start reading them. So, what I suggest is that you open your calendar first before you look at your emails. So, if you're using Google, just don't even open that Gmail, open your calendar app first. If you use Outlook, for example, there's actually a setting. So you can change the setting so that it opens when you open your email, it opens to your calendar before it opens to your email. And so, first thing in the morning, you're looking at your calendar first. Take 2 minutes to map out your day, review your task list. What do you have to accomplish this day? What's not urgent or important that can be moved or eliminated? Then either take 30 minutes to do something that is important, one of your big to do items, or then go and start sorting email. Because I know some people, no matter what, you just love to get through your email first thing in the morning. Absolutely get it. Just open to your calendar first. And so this next view might be a little overwhelming for people because it's a view of my calendar from Outlook. So this makes absolute perfect sense to me, and I don't find it overwhelming, but for other people it might be. So just a little disclaimer. But this used to be my Outlook calendar. I use Google now, but this was from my previous job. And I would set Outlook to open first thing in the morning. And what it allowed me to do is just give me a quick snapshot of my day and my week. So I color code things on my calendar to let me know, do I need to go somewhere? Do I need to have some travel time built in? Am I presenting? Am I leading a meeting? I want to make sure that I look really presentable. Or do I need to be off camera all day long? So this gives me a quick snapshot to say, okay, all those things in yellow, I'm leading those. So I really need to make sure that I'm on, and I probably want to block some prep time right beforehand. That item that's in gray, I know I need to be there in person. That's going to be some travel time. Anything that is in blue, those are meetings that I have with people. So for me, it just gave me a really quick view of what my day, what my week looks like. And then on the right hand side, you can see I have my task list. So I could quickly look to see what's on my to-dos. Are there any big items? And then I could say, okay, I'm going to tackle one of these big to-dos, or you know what? I was waiting on that response from someone. I'm going to go back and I'm going to check my email and go through that first. But it was just a nice way for me to get my bearings at the beginning of the day. And I'm going to zoom in on this because this is so key for my effectiveness. And I've recommended it to lots of other people that have found it to be really effective as well. Have a planning session built into your schedule. I like to do my weekly planning the beginning of the week on Mondays. For some people, they prefer to do it Friday afternoons. Some people have said they love to do it Sunday evenings before they get into the work week. I'm not a fan of weekend work, but that's what works for some people. Just find a 20 to 30-minute block each week that is your planning time where you can look at the week. You can move things around. You can decide, you know what? There's 2 meetings on my calendar that I'm going to note. I can send a representative of my place, or this could be an email, or you know what? This isn't as important right now. I do recognize this meeting's important, but I'm going to push it out 2 weeks because I know I've got this big deadline that's looming and I need some time to get it done. That's what your planning time is all about. So schedule that on your calendar, block it, and make it a recurring meeting. I found that very, very helpful. And then my to-do lists. I use Gmail task lists now. Again, this is probably a lot of to-dos for one day. Half of this list is just notes, things that I want to follow up with certain people. Towards the bottom, you see people's names: Beth, Margot, Eric. Sarah, those are all notes. I know I'm going to meet with those individuals today, and I just want to have that at the ready because I have questions I want to ask, or there's a document that I need to review. So for me, looking at my to-do list, I can see this. I put in an order of priority. I shift things around. Any notes that I have that are related to meetings with people, I'll put those all together. That for me has been really helpful in organizing. For you, you might have a different strategy to organize, but you want something that's going to help you have a very quick view of what's planned for your day. And someone is asking, what's your motivation to switch from Outlook to Gmail? I went from working in a corporate environment where we used Outlook to being out on my own. And I just chose Google as an option for me. I really like Gmail. I think it's very easy to use and accessible. I used it in a previous workplace. And so for me, it's just a preference and also the switching of roles. So that is all, that's capturing, clarifying your work. The other piece we're going to start talking about is distractions, managing distractions. This is something that I heard as a top challenge for a lot of people navigating their workloads. And I'll say shiny object syndrome over here, squirrel moments out my window all the time. I get easily distracted as well. So I hear you. What do they look like for you in your world? What do distractions look like for you? Go ahead and post in the chat. Is it cats running across your desk? Do you work in an office where people are constantly stopping by your office, your cube, calls, social media, people I'm sitting with, kids, yeah, texts, dogs barking, workers coming to the cube, my puppy. Coworkers are very social. Parker, I hear you. My last job environment, I was in cubes with a learning and development team, very social group of people. I also am very social, so it was very hard. And we were in a high traffic area for the organization, so people were constantly stopping by, saying hello, asking us questions. I hear you. Team chats, tasks, family at home, IMs, right? That aren't important, that aren't urgent. People talking loudly in the office, text messages, phone calls. You smell that burnt popcorn down the hall, right? Absolutely. Emails, IMs, those cube office drive-bys, people stopping by the office, pets in the house, partners, right? Some of us work from home and we have other people that also work from home, or we have kids coming in. Absolutely. So, I'm going to share with you my top 3 tips for helping to navigate this. And I will say this was a big struggle for me, especially when I went from working in an office almost full time to working at home almost full time. And so, some things that I put into practice that I have found extremely helpful: blocking time on the calendar. I'd mentioned that a little bit earlier. That's my third step, right? In the tasks, I block time. So when I do my weekly planning, I look at the week and I say, where do I have open space? What are the activities that I have to do? I'm going to block an hour to work on this report. I'm going to block 2 hours to prep for this workshop that I have to do. I'm going to block an hour and a half to work on budgeting and updating my budget and my expenses. So I block that time on my calendar because if it's open, people will take it from you. I also look out. I'll look at the next week and the next week and just see what's on the horizon. What are some big deadlines that I have looming? You know what? I need to block time next week too. I know I'm going to need 2 hours to get this done, and I know I've got a deadline coming up. So I will block that time. Now, I'm flexible, knowing that if something comes up, I can move that around, but at least it has a placeholder for me, and I try to honor that placeholder 80% of the time, knowing that things come up 80% of the time. And that is sacred time. That is a meeting with yourself to get your work done, to focus on the stuff that really matters. Pause and batch your email. This has been extremely helpful for me. I use an add-on called Boomerang. And what that does is I have a pause inbox button that I press after I've gone through my email in the morning, figured out, okay, there's no crisis. I can schedule answering these emails a little bit later. Then I hit that pause inbox. They all go to a folder so I don't see those constant notifications coming in because email is a huge distraction. And when we're working on something that we're really focused on and we're constantly coming back to the email notifications that are coming on, it's called task switching. So I'm working on this report. I'm really in it. And I hear that ding or I see the ticker go up on my inbox. Oh, I'm just going to check that email. And then you read the email and you say, that really wasn't that important. Okay, I'll answer that later. Wait a minute. What was I doing again? I was on the report. I think it was on page 2. So it takes a long time then to get back into what you were doing. It's actually more productive for you to just pause your email, come back to them at lunchtime and answer them all at once. I like to pause my email and check in about twice a day. I usually check in around lunchtime, answer some emails, and then at the end of the day, I try to clean up things as well. So, pausing and batching your email, I like the app called Boomerang. I'll share a link with you in the follow up email that I send you as well. And then the third tip that I have for you is silencing those notifications. We talked about Teams chats, texts that are coming in, silence those notifications. I used to use Microsoft Teams, and you can put do not disturb so that you don't hear the ding. And you can even put an away message. You can say, I'm offline until noon. I'll be checking my messages then. Texts, phones, turning that off for a period of time so that you can really focus in on your work. So silencing those notifications is really helpful. And I also find it helpful to create some standards with the team that you work with. Standards that we had in place around communication, we all agreed. We said emails, if we're sending an email, it means, can you please respond to me within one business day? You don't have to necessarily have an answer, but could you just acknowledge the receipt of the email within one day, unless I said you can get back to me next week, right? Unless I specifically, explicitly gave you a different deadline. So we all agreed about that for email. And then we said for instant messages, if we're sending an instant message to each other, we're asking for a response by the end of the day. Doesn't have to be right this second, but just I'd love for you to get back to me by the end of the day. And then we said for true, real emergencies where I need an answer right now, pick up the phone, call me, get on a phone call. So having those standards in place with the team, it made it really clear our best communication channels. And we all felt okay with pausing and batching our emails. We felt okay with putting do not disturb on our notifications, knowing that we've all agreed that we answer those right away. So those are my 3 tips to help with managing distractions. Now we're going to talk about sustaining success. And we do that by strengthening our resiliency. For you, what techniques do you use to help build that mental toughness? What self-care do you practice to help strengthen your own resiliency? Go ahead and share in the chat. What are things that you do? Chips and chocolate. That sounds great. Breathing exercises, absolutely physical activity, getting my nails done, working on the weekends. Yes, Barbara, I want to shout that from the rooftops. Yoga, breathing techniques, going for a walk, working out, eating, going for a walk, sitting in silence and reflecting. Oh, I need to do more of that, Tim. Meditation, yoga, walking, reading. Absolutely. All great ways. And for me, self-care, the chips and chocolate, sometimes people think that's all self-care is. It certainly can be part of it, but it really does go deeper than that. And I'm going to share with you the 3 techniques that I highly recommend to help with self-care, with strengthening resiliency. The first one is all about boundaries. We need to set and maintain healthy boundaries for ourselves, like not working on the weekends, which I know a couple people have talked about in the chat, not working past a certain time during the weekdays so we can have time for ourselves, have time to read, to walk outside, to sit in silence. So, conducting a boundary audit, and what I mean by that is where are my needs not being met? Where am I getting stressed or overwhelmed? And creating a boundary around that. Maybe it is not working weekends. Maybe it is that I don't answer my emails from 9 to 12 because I'm batching them. Maybe it is that I stop going to this meeting because I'm not really adding value, but I have someone else that I could send in my place where they would be adding a lot of value. And then communicate that boundary with others. And if that boundary is not being met, have that conversation with the individual to politely, right? To let them know that this boundary is something you've established. It's really important to you. It's to help you be a better performer, to drive results, and you'd really appreciate if they could honor it. Right? Too many meetings, Barbara. I hear you. That is a big area of opportunity for us to reclaim time is really doing a meeting audit for ourselves. Where are there areas where I'm making an impact, I'm adding value, or I'm getting value from it? And where am I not? Does it make sense to still have it? Could I have those meetings less? Could they be emails instead? Asking yourself, could I send a representative in my place? My other tip for you, nope one thing a week. Practice saying no more. When you say yes to something, you are automatically saying no to something else. You're saying no to another event, not meeting another deadline, your mental well being, your physical well being, or time with your family. So for the next 30 days, look at your calendar each week and note one thing. What's that meeting that doesn't add value? What's a project that might not be kicking off for another month? We could move that meeting. What's something that maybe is scheduled for an hour that we can discuss in 20 minutes? What's a social gathering that isn't an absolute yes for me right now? So, noping one thing each week for the next 30 days, it just helps you getting into the practice of saying no more. And I will tell you, it is very liberating. Now, the caveat I have with that is we want to say nope and do it in a politeful, diplomatic way. And you might say, my nope is not right now. This is still important to me, but it doesn't have to happen this week. So a nope doesn't have to be an all out no. And don't just go and say no and decline every meeting. Have a conversation with whoever the meeting organizer is first, please. And then the last tip that I have is practicing mindfulness. Some of you shared meditation, yoga, breathing exercises, taking a pause. Those are all different ways that you can practice mindfulness. It is really the art of creating space for ourselves, space to think, space to breathe, space between ourselves and our reactions. I like Brene Brown. She refers to mindfulness as paying attention. It's about being grounded in the present moment, learning to savor and appreciate being in that present moment. And what it does when we practice mindfulness, it enhances our cognitive flexibility, our judgment accuracy. It facilitates our job performance. It increases stress. It improves our resiliency and our work engagement and our well being. That's why this is so important. And I'm going to do a mindfulness practice with you very quickly. This is something that you can do within a couple of minutes. So you keep your camera on if you want, totally turn it on if you don't, but one of your hands up and the other hand is going to trace the outline of your hand. And I'm going to walk you through a breathing exercise that you can do with this. So what you're going to do is as you trace your finger up, your thumb, you're going to breathe in through your nose and then breathe out through your mouth. Okay, so we're going to start with our thumb and you're going to breathe, close your eyes if you want. Breathe in through your nose and trace up. Breathe out through your mouth and trace down. Breathe in through your nose and trace up. Breathe out through your mouth and trace down. Breathe in through your nose and trace up. Breathe out through your mouth and trace down. Breathe in through your nose and trace up. Breathe out through your mouth and trace down. Breathe in through your nose and trace up. Breathe out through your mouth and trace down. Now, I know I went through that kind of quickly. It's certainly something you can slow down. What it does is it helps you regulate your nervous system. It helps you to purposely slow down, be more grounded in the moment. So it's that combination of the breathing in and the tactical, I'm touching my fingers, really helps to bring you back to the present. I found it really helpful in the moment. If you're in a virtual meeting, you can trace your fingers under the table, or if you're going in between meetings, you just need a reset. It's something that can be really helpful. There's lots of different practices out there. I have found that one to be easy, quick. For anyone that has kids, it also works great for kids too. So, menu of options, right? To help you get organized, control your environment, sustain success. You might not be able to control all the inputs that are coming in, but you can control how you respond and navigate through work. Get real about your relationship with time. What mindset might be holding you back in this space? Have a system in place that works for you to capture all of your to dos, all your responsibilities, and create time to clarify what's most important and urgent. Silence those notifications. Your email, pause that email, batch that email. It's just such a huge opportunity to minimize distractions. And what I'll say is if you can't turn off email, follow the 2 minute rule. Can I respond to this in 2 minutes or less? Yes? Okay, do it now. If not, schedule a time on your calendar to respond, research, or complete it later. And take care of yourself. Get sleep, practice mindfulness and self care. Set those healthy boundaries to build your mental toughness so that you're better able to navigate your workload in times of balance and harmony and in times of overwhelm and stress. This is a journey, it's an investment in yourself, and the rewards can be amazing. Following these practices myself the last 15 years has led to higher engagement on the teams I've led and better results for teams and individuals at Co. So think about what am I going to do next? What's my goal? What do I want to tackle first? Maybe it's my relationship with time. Maybe it's just looking at all the ways that I capture my to do items. What's one action you can take today? Go ahead and post that in the chat if you have that in mind, the action that you're going to take when you get off this call. Before I open up for questions, I want to share some goodies that I'm going to be sending you in a follow-up email. One is this 30-day action plan. So I have a one pager that I'm going to send you that includes all that we went over to get today, packaged in this 30-day action plan that you can implement for yourself. So I'm going to send you that. There is a lot packed in this short period of time. So if you are looking for more support in this space, you want to dig deeper into the strategies that we've discussed today, I'm offering a 4-month coaching package to do this. And that rate that I'm offering is going to be available for the next month. This is the QR code. I will also send you a link to that package if it's something you're interested in exploring. And then I have another workshop next month that I'm offering free, all about feedback. How do I create that feedback culture on my team, in my organization? We're going to go over not just the skill of giving feedback, we're also going to talk about appreciation, and we're going to talk about building the skill of receiving feedback, something that we often don't talk about. So the QR code will take you to the link to register if you're interested. I'll also send the link in a follow-up email. And then I wanted to share my contact information with you. Love to connect on LinkedIn if you're interested. I share similar tips like this and other leadership related tips on LinkedIn weekly. I have my email and my website here as well. You can also just respond to the email that I send out a little bit later this afternoon if you have some follow-up questions or you need some additional support. And with that, I will open this to any questions that anyone has. You can unmute yourself. You can share in the chat. If I missed your question, maybe one that you asked a little bit earlier, I'm sorry. Please go ahead and post that again. And I'm seeing all of your action items. Love this. Opening the calendar first, silencing emails, scheduling time, consolidating your to-dos, delegating. Love it. Time blocking. Open calendar first. I know. It's so simple. We don't even think about it. I love that. Saying no, task list, too many meetings. Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Well, I see a few people dropping. I know some of you may have to go. So I will stay on the line for anyone that has some additional questions. You want to go over anything in more detail that I shared with you. And I just leave you with this final quote. You can't pour from an empty cup. So please take care of yourself first. This is an area you want to be selfish first. I really appreciate your time and engagement today. And again, stay on the line if you have any additional questions or thoughts you want to share with me. Thanks, everyone.